So we have here a compilation of all of the major Democratic establishment power brokers who are actually breaking from these media institutions and saying, no, 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 no. It's not Biden's fault. It's his staff's fault. That's the excuse that Jim Clyburn has. Let's take a listen.
Take into account the record. Yes, it was a bad performance. I've been around these things. I've been a part of debate preparation before, and I know what when I see what I call preparation overload. And that's exactly what was going on the other night. I saw Joe Biden grabbing for words and phrases and even numbers that he was loaded up with. The next day, he gets to North Carolina, he's freewheeling, and he captivated the audience. And that's what we should do. You know, debate preparation can be tough, but you've got to really do a good job of preparing the candidate, not just with information, but with style, with deflection, and the kinds of things that we did not see in Joe Biden the other night and saw it 4 years ago. I don't like a debate where nobody will do any fact-checking. You just say what you want to say. You know it's a lie. The guy told 30-some-odd lies, and nobody checked him on it and said that was up to Joe Biden to do. I'm not too sure. If I ask you a question and you lie to me with the answer, I ought to follow up and give you what the facts are and see what your reaction to that will be. So that, to me, was not the way to plan the debate. And whoever did that or agreed to that really should think about what they're doing.
Yeah, okay. Well, it was a debate agreed to by President Biden first, who proposed this debate.
There are healthcare professionals who think that Trump has dementia, that his connection, his thoughts do not go together. And you know, while he may be saying we're enablers, we see Joe Biden up close. We know how attuned he is to the issues, how informed he is. And I debate with him about legislation, and not debate, but discuss it with him. He's right there.
He's right there. According to Nancy Pelosi, who is somehow older than Joe Biden in her 80s, Jim Clyburn, 83 years old. But that's part of the issue. These are the Democratic establishment. We have had no word from Senator Chuck Schumer, spring chicken at just 74 years old. But what we have is a word from every single major Democratic power broker. They are backing Joe Biden, and they have decided to stick with him. And that is perhaps the most shocking part of all of this. Second, of course, to that is Kamala Harris, who, if anything, probably has the most incentive for Biden to drop out, because it appears mechanically she may be the person who would replace him on the ticket. And just watch also as she basically melts down in some of that post-debate interview with Anderson Cooper in her defense. Everyone now, the line is, yes, it was a bad debate performance, but look at the whole picture. Look at the whole 3 years. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
The point has to be performance in terms of what a president does. A president who incites an insurrection against the Capitol. No, but I got the point that you're making about a 1.5 hour debate tonight. I'm talking about 3.5 years of performance in work that has been historic.
But
whether
is that
it be
the man who we saw on the stage tonight? Is that the person you see in meetings every day?
The person that you saw on the debate stage that has, for the last 3.5 years, up until today, performed in a way that has been about, whether it be in the Oval Office, negotiating bipartisan deals, so that we have an infrastructure, a real infrastructure plan where we're putting trillions of dollars on the streets of America to upgrade our infrastructure. Whether it be the person I see in the Oval Office who is meeting with heads of the military and the intelligence community and in the Situation Room, ensuring the safety of America. The person I see in Joe Biden on the world stage, convening world leaders who often ask for his advice. most recently just during the G7 conference. So I'm not going to spend all night with you talking about the last 90 minutes.
I'm not going to spend the next time talking about the last 90 minutes. These people are so shameless because he does the most basic parts of the job, sitting in the Oval Office and meeting with people. That is apparently what qualifies him to be president. But this is now the line of the Democratic establishment. It's not about the debate. It's all just about the work of the last few years. We also have Biden's former apparatchik, Jen Psaki, taking to her television show on MSNBC to calm the fears of the Democratic base about why it would just be too complicated for Biden to drop out. Let's take a listen.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you what to think. But those of you out there who have hopes of Joe Biden stepping aside so that there can be a brokered convention should know that isn't exactly an easy road either. You should know all the factors there. First of all, it would have a seismic impact on the Democratic Party if the president stayed neutral and didn't endorse his own vice president. It would mean also a couple thousand party insiders would be empowered to make a choice on the nominee, not the millions of Democratic primary voters who already cast their ballots. And it could mean positioning a talented, and there are many Democrats who are very talented out there, but largely untested candidate with potentially low name identification into the national spotlight as the one person responsible for defeating Trump just over 2 months from an election. You may still prefer that option, but you should know the candidate who was spit out of that process may not be your choice either. And it would all be very messy and potentially very divisive.
It would be messy and divisive, except it wouldn't be messy and divisive if you continue to have a dementia and senile president dragged across the finish line and have a historic loss. Would that be messy and divisive at the next convention and within the Democratic Party? These people are so shameless, again, in their excuses for why it's just too complicated. It's not like we haven't had contested conventions before, and it's not like it isn't a modern political invention to have the nominees sewed up so early. I also love this line that he won the primary where they literally canceled and rigged the process to make sure that there was no debate and that there were no airing of any grievances within the party. We also saw, and this is perhaps the single most consequential one, let's put this up there on the screen, former President Barack Obama. He says, bad debate nights happen. Trust me, I know. But this election is still a choice between someone who has fought for ordinary folks his entire life and someone who cares only about himself. Between someone who tells the truth, who knows right from wrong and will give it to the American people straight, and someone who lies through his teeth for his own benefit. Last night didn't change that. That is why so much is at stake in November. JoeBiden.com. Again, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, Jim Clyburn, and Chuck Schumer are probably the only 5 people in the country, other than the Biden family themselves, who could actually get Biden to drop out of the race. And in previous eras in history, there were actually courageous moments where people said, you know what, we can't continue with this. And they said, for the good of the country, we need to act. But they don't have that anymore. Bill Clinton himself, let's put this up there. I mean, these are 2 talented politicians, people who legitimately in their own rights actually won 2 presidential elections, who obviously know the truth. Clinton here is younger than Biden, and he says, quote, I will leave the debate rating to the pundits. But here's what I know. Facts and history matter. Joe Biden has given us 3 years of solid leadership, steadying us after the pandemic, creating a record number of new jobs, making real progress, solving the climate crisis, and launching a successful effort in reducing inflation, all while pulling us out of the quagmire that Donald Trump left us in. That is what's really at stake in November. That is now apparently the new cope is actually, if you look at the totality of his presidency, well, it doesn't matter that he's senile and old and he's not really running the show because the people behind him are really running the show. And I actually expect this to become a mainstream opinion. I expect this to become the new justification of, look, Trump is awful, so we might as well vote for the people behind Biden so that, yeah, even if he dies or he's completely senile or whatever, it's okay. But there's also some other players who are involved here. And those perhaps may be the biggest criminals in this entire story. Let's put this up there on the screen. The Biden family. So last night there was a vaunted meeting of the Biden family where they gathered together, and I am not joking here, they gathered together for a Vogue photo shoot with Annie Leibovitz, of which Jill Biden was now put on the front page. Now, many are speculating that perhaps it is Jill Biden and Hunter Biden and many of the Biden family themselves who are the major beneficiaries of the office, who perhaps don't want President Biden to step down because that, of course, would take away from their own power and their night in the limelight. Well, as you see in front of you, the Biden family is now telling him to keep fighting as they huddle at Camp David just last night. And I'm going to read a little bit from this. President Biden's family is urging him to stay in the race and to keep fighting despite last week's disastrous debate performance, even as some members of his clan privately expressed exasperation at how he was prepared for the event by his staff. Do you see here how it's the staff's job that Biden did such an awful job? They're like, oh, he over-prepared, over-preparation. They riddled him with facts. Maybe it was a candidate who asked for that, and also it wasn't his facts that were the problem, it's the fact that he can't complete a freaking sentence. Now, as I continue down here, he says, President Biden has been soliciting ideas from advisors about how to proceed. His staff have been discussing whether he should hold a news conference or sit for interviews, but nothing has been decided yet. Now, pay close attention to this one. One of the strongest voices imploring Mr. Biden to resist pressure is his son, Hunter, whom the president has long leaned on for advice, which said that one of the people informed about the discussions, like others, spoke on the condition of anonymity. Hunter Biden wants Americans to see the version of his father that he knows, scrappy and in command of the facts, rather than the stumbling, aging president Americans saw on Thursday night. Now, let's think about this. Is it perhaps that Hunter wants his father's legacy to continue? That could be it. Is the other part of it that without his father being president, a rich Democratic donor never would have paid his $2 million in back taxes, which he continues to owe to that private individual? Or perhaps he wouldn't have made hundreds of thousands of dollars on his terrible art, also purchased again by Democratic donors? Maybe he has a direct financial interest in his father remaining president. And if you're Jill Biden, you are now Dr. Jill Biden, as ordained by the media, and you're on the cover of August Vogue. That's what every lady wants, right? And they even write in the piece about the trappings of power and how Jill Biden is in the motorcade and all the roads are shut down and how she's risen to the occasion. But the Biden family has an obvious, direct, and narcissistic interest in keeping their patron in office, because that's what keeps the cash flowing for every single other person who's involved. Or the trappings of power, which of course become intoxicating. That's a tale as old as time. So these family members and others, they're the ones who are basically just clinging to the office. They're the ones begging him to remain. The Democratic establishment is either too weak, too old themselves, or I guess just resigned to the process of his total wipeout in November, and they're powerless. So there's cowardice at every single level of this game. Not being able to speak truth to your loved ones, which in my view is probably the most heinous act themselves. If you truly love somebody, it's not about your own interests, your powers, it's about thinking and acting on behalf of that person. But the narcissism flows all the way to the top of an arrogant man, Joe Biden himself, who refuses to see his own limitations. And that has been the story since he announced his candidacy back in 2016. So it's been absolutely stunning. That's just been the last 24 hours, guys, of the media and the Democratic establishment coming together. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.